All right, so let's get to work making the main loop for the new track. First thing is, let's use some Lydian loops from Lydian Loops Volume 2. Now, you don't have to use these exclusively. You can use the factory loops, and if you've explored this already, you may notice there's no percussion in Lydian Loops Volume 2. That's because there's a lot of percussion in the factory loops that come with Studio One, and so I encourage you to check that out. Here it is. I'm sorting this right now by instrument and character, and that gives me percussion, and then I could go to loop, and here's all the percussion loops. Look at all that. So there's a lot of cool stuff to use in there. So I didn't feel it was necessary to include a whole other percussion section in Lydian loops because there's so much that comes with Studio One already. But all this other stuff is good to use. So let's get started with that. I'm going to start with some drums. And what we're doing now, if you recall, like I said before, is building a loop where we put as many elements in as possible and just fill it out before it becomes too much. And then we're going to spread this out. So we're going to try to use a lot of things here. I'll take this one. So I've got this up here. Here's a shortcut for you if you haven't tried this yet. If you have something highlighted like this, I click on this, I push Shift P. That puts my loop around whatever I clicked on. So instead of having to draw it out like this, I can just click and push Shift P, and then I can push the slash key, and we get a loop around it. So we should be hearing that now. Cool. So I'm going to leave that for now, leave the separated and all that, and I'm going to get into some instruments. So I'm going to start with electric piano. I think for this one, I'm going to go with this just because the beat's real slow. So let's drag this in here. Let's hear it together. Sounds good. Now, I've got chords, right? Can we hear these are chords? I've got my drums covered, I've got my chords covered. I'm thinking about the elements that I need to put in this beat. So I still need some bass, I still need a melody, and I can put some other things in here as well. So I'm gonna go for some bass now. And one thing to know is that bass is really dependent on what the chords are. You might find that some of these bass lines clash or don't sound very good with some of the chord progressions. And that's just the way it has to be. So I recommend you use your ears. There actually is at least one bass line per chord progression. So whatever chord progression you find in Lydian Loops Volume 2, there is a bass line in here that goes with it. But you can also create your own by taking some and chopping them up and doing whatever. So I'm going to take a look here. Let's play it with the thing. This is the one that goes with that one. See how nicely it plays with it. I'm not in loop mode here. Let's put that on. I'm going to grab this and stick it in. So you can see the bass notes match the chords perfectly. Create a nice feeling. But something I want to show you is that I don't want to just use like the full loops. I want to chop them up and do things with them. So I'm going to find another one here. Perfect. So this first note is the same as this first note. You can tell. So I'm actually going to use this one for the beginning. But I'm only going to use this first little bit. And then I'm going to take this back like this. I missed. That's what I want. So if I solo these. Nice. Okay, now you hear this little click that happens here, this little pop. That. So this is something very important to learn about. We're going to talk about it in the future, but it's good to learn now too. This happens when you cut an audio file in the middle of a waveform. If I zoom way in fact, I'm going to double click on this and zoom way in to to the start of it. Look at that. How cool is that? You see, this is the waveform going up, and it's right in the middle of one of its cycles, and it gets chopped just like that. And that causes a little pop that you hear when we play it like that. We can easily get rid of that. All we have to do is fade. So whenever we chop something in the middle of a note, we have to fade. So I'm going to take this little handle and fade in just a tiny bit. Just, oh, that didn't do it. There we go, like that. And I'm going to take this fade out a tiny little bit so it doesn't pop either. Now it's smooth. Now this one's a little bit louder than this one, so I'm going to turn this one down a little bit. That sounds pretty good. I'm going to do the same over here. So I'm going to split this and pull this out a couple beats and drag this with Alt. And now I need to fade out this ending just a little bit and fade in this one. This one's already faded because it's the same as this one. So now let's check it out.
I like it.
Okay, so remember what I said about bass lines? You don't want two bass lines playing simultaneously. I'm done with bass now. Unless I wanted to go in and chop another one up to fit somewhere in here, I could do that too. But I'm good with this. I've got two going on. You don't need to do two if you want. You can stick with just the one. It's kind of a cool idea though. But notice they're not overlapping each other. Two bass lines overlapping are gonna clash. So I'm gonna move on now from the bass and grab some guitar maybe. So let's play this. Like that. Let's stick this in here. Now I noticed that this is moving around a lot, and the bass does a little thing right here. If I listen to the bass, so I'm actually going to get rid of this bit of guitar, which means I need to fade this. And I don't need to fade this one because there's no audio happening when it's cut. So let's hear that now. Oh, solo's on. And this too is a bit much for me in this beat. I'm going to cut right. I'm going to cut. Let's try cutting that and see what that does. Need one more. That's it. Put a little fade on that. I'm going to turn the guitar down a little bit. I like it. Let's see if we can add something else. Maybe some synth. No. It's pretty cool. I don't know if it fits with this though. It's interesting. Maybe. Now remember how I told you there's no reverb on these, they're dry. If we put some reverb on this, you can make a bong and big ring out like that. It'll sound really nice. So I'm gonna grab this, put it here. And I don't need this last one, so I'm just gonna get rid of that. That's sounding pretty good. I'm thinking what I could do now is grab the piano or the electric piano right here. I'm gonna chop it, I don't know, maybe here. And I'm gonna show you a new trick. So if I get a little piece like this, I can push Command R or Control R and it reverses it. That's pretty cool. But that sounds a bit weird, like that. So what I'm going to do is drag this one a little bit over top of this, and I'm going to grab both and press X, and we get a crossfade. So crossfade fades them simultaneously in and out of each other. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Cool, so it kind of is decaying and then it fades back into kind of getting louder again. Like it. These are too loud. Should be kind of a background element. Now remember, I'm not going to put a melody on this yet. I'm just trying to build this up to the point where it's got enough stuff that a melody will be the finishing touch. And it's pretty close to that right now. What it could have, actually, if I go into the effects, get this burst, I could maybe put that right here. Yep. So now it feels like the snare hits that burst and kind of bursts it open. Now you notice that I'm really taking my time here. I'm being careful about what I'm choosing. I'm making decisions and thinking for a while about, is that really what I want? Do I want the whole loop or just a portion of it? This is something I really encourage you to do. Don't just take the first thing that comes to mind, put in a loop and oh, that's good enough. Take time. You have time to take. So take some time and really be careful with what you're doing. Think about it. Is it exactly what you want? If not, try something else. Be creative, experiment. See what I did with the reversing there? You can reverse any of these things. You can chop any of these things. Whatever you want to do, find creative ways to mix the audio around to create new versions, to create new ideas out of these loops. And the more care you take, the more that will come through in the composition. When someone has really taken care of every little detail, you can tell, and it really feels like a complete song. So that's something I really encourage you to focus on, is being specific about your song, about each part of it. Is it just how you want? Are the drums just how you want them to be? For instance, if I like this drum beat, but I thought that maybe I didn't want this kick drum right here, I could go take the separated version of it in the separated section, get the one with the beat by itself and the one with the hi-hat by itself, and go and chop out this kick from that beat. That's what I'm talking about. Really paying attention to what's going on and make decisions about, is it exactly how I want it to sound? Because you can get it there. You can get it to sound how you want. It might take a little bit of trickery, but that's what it's all about, the fun of trying to manipulate this audio. The other thing to keep in mind is the busyness or the feeling too empty or too sparse. Now, I think right now I've got a good blend going on here. It feels like it's a little like missing just something, but that something is the melody. I know when I go and put that melody on, this is going to feel complete. If I start adding in some more elements, it's going to get too busy. It's going to sound like there's too much happening at one time, and there's not going to be like a way to focus on something. Now, of course, you can always go in and change the arrangement. So if you want to keep adding things and adding things, you can definitely do that. And then when you put the melody in and you find out, oh, it's too busy now, you can go in and remove something if it's getting in the way. The other half of that is you don't want it to be too empty. Make sure you've got all these elements going on. Drums, bass, chords, melody, effects if you want them, percussion if you want them. I don't have any percussion in this right now. Maybe in the next section I'll put some percussion in. Go grab some loops from inside the percussion folder here. And once you've got those main elements in, then you know it's kind of a good foundation. It's ready to be the main part of your song, and you can lay that melody on top of it. And then when you explode that out into the full song, there's going to be enough material there to reach a song of 3 minutes without getting boring from hearing the same thing too much. Okay, so that's really all there is to this part. The idea is to make the main loop here, getting the main loop dialed in so that it's ready to have a melody put on top of it. And then after that, we're going to learn about arranging, exploding the song out into its full form.